Pacemaker does not think. It does not feel. It does not know the name of the person whose heart it regulates. It knows only rhythm, the steady electrical insistence that a heart must keep beating. Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker had been doing its job for years. A small device lodged beneath skin and bone, tethered by Bluetooth to the phone she kept nearby, syncing data, monitoring fluctuations, recording every beat with the quiet diligence of a machine that exists for one purpose: to keep its host alive. On the night of January 17th, at exactly 2:28 a.m., that connection severed. Not gradually, not through a dying battery or a temporary glitch. The signal between Nancy's pacemaker and her phone simply ceased, which means one of two things happened in that moment. Either the phone was destroyed, or Nancy was moved beyond its reach. 8 minutes later, a surveillance camera on a back road, 2.5 miles away, captured a vehicle moving through the darkness. The road is not a main artery. It is the kind of road someone takes when they do not want to be seen. Between those two moments, the severance at 2:28 and the shadow at 2:36, lies the entire mystery of what happened to Nancy Guthrie. The pacemaker timestamp, the blood on the patio, the desert that surrounds her home like a vast, indifferent witness. What happened in those 8 minutes? And where is Nancy Guthrie now? The Tucson foothills sit at the edge of the Sonoran Desert in southern Arizona, a landscape of saguaro cactus and ironwood trees, of red-tailed hawks riding thermals above sun-bleached ridgelines. By day, it is a place of brutal beauty. By night, it becomes something else entirely. There are no streetlights on the roads that wind through these foothills neighborhoods. No sidewalks, no grid pattern. The homes are set back from the road on parcels of an acre or more, separated not by fences but by open desert. Unfenced land that bleeds from one property into the next, with no clear boundary. On a moonless night, a person standing 30 feet from the front door of one of these homes might as well be invisible. Nancy Guthrie lived in one of these homes. A woman with a pacemaker and a phone that stayed close, in a house that felt private, that felt safe. At the edge of a desert that doesn't concern itself with the safety of the people who live beside it. The foothills residents had chosen this landscape for its solitude. But solitude, it turns out, is not the same thing as security. And the same qualities that make these neighborhoods desirable, the space, the darkness, the distance from neighbors, are the same qualities that make them vulnerable. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has been responding to residential burglaries in the Tucson foothills for decades. Not occasionally, routinely. These neighborhoods, affluent, spread out, set back from main roads, are among the most consistently targeted areas in the county for property crime. The behavioral profile of foothills burglary is well documented. Properties are surveilled in advance, sometimes days, sometimes weeks before entry. Perpetrators rarely approach from the front. They come through adjacent parcels, walking through open desert from a road to the south or east, crossing property lines that exist on paper but not on the ground. They work in teams, a minimum of 2, often 3. One enters, one watches, one drives. Their escape routes favor unpaved back roads that avoid the main arteries, where license plate readers and traffic cameras might catch a plate number. And the vast majority of these burglaries target empty homes. The perpetrators want property, not confrontation. They prefer daylight hours when residents are at work. They are, by behavioral definition, conflict averse, but there are outliers. In a small but documented percentage of cases, burglars will enter an occupied home at night. These are not amateurs. They are individuals with higher risk tolerance, often carrying prior convictions that guarantee significant prison time upon any new arrest. They carry weapons, not primarily to use them, but as instruments of compliance. The gun is there to ensure the person inside the home does what they are told. The problem, the variable that turns a property crime into something far worse, is what happens when compliance fails. When the person inside the home fights back, reaches for a phone, screams, or simply refuses to cooperate. In that moment, the burglar's decision tree collapses into a very small number of options, and none of them end well for anyone. Nancy Guthrie's home sat in the middle of this pattern. And on the night she disappeared, someone who knew that pattern came to her door before 2:28. In the days before Nancy Guthrie vanished, a surveillance camera captured an image that would later take on enormous significance. A figure approaching the Guthrie property. No firearm visible, no urgency in the posture. This was not the night of the disappearance. This was days, possibly a week, before. The implication is difficult to overstate. Whoever came to Nancy's door on the night she disappeared had been there before. The property had been watched. The layout had been studied. The approach route had been tested. This was not a random act, this was preparation. And there is a second image from the night itself. The same approach, but this time the figure appears to be carrying a firearm tucked into the waistband. And this time the figure appears to attempt to obscure or avoid the ring camera at the front door, using what looks like shrubbery or brush gathered from the surrounding desert. The contrast between these two images tells its own story. The first visit was reconnaissance. The second was execution. But the clumsy attempt to defeat a doorbell camera with desert brush raises an immediate question. If the person at the door had the sophistication to surveil the property in advance, why did they not account for the camera? Why the improvised, almost amateur attempt to block it? This is the first fracture in a case that will reveal many. A gap between planning and execution that suggests either desperation, inexperience, or a plan that was already going wrong before it began. Nancy's pacemaker maintained a Bluetooth connection to her phone with the consistency of a metronome. The device pinged. The phone received. Data flowed. It had been doing this for years without interruption. At 2:28 a.m. on January 17th, the connection dropped. In medical device terms, this is not a gradual fade. Bluetooth has a functional range of roughly 30 feet under ideal conditions. Less through walls, less through obstruction. For the connection to sever, either the phone ceased to function or Nancy moved beyond its range. In either scenario, something happened in that home that broke a link which had held silently and faithfully for years. And then there is the blood. Droplets found on the front patio outside the front door, confirmed to be Nancy's, not inside the home. At the threshold, the exact boundary between shelter and exposure, between the place Nancy was supposed to be safe and the desert that waited outside. The location of the blood is critical. It does not tell us what happened inside the home, but it tells us that something physical occurred at or near the point of exit. A confrontation, a struggle, an injury sustained as Nancy was moved, or as she resisted being moved through her own front door. 2.5 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home, there is a road. It does not appear on most people's mental maps of the neighborhood. It is not a main artery. It does not connect to any highway interchange or commercial district. It is the kind of road that exists primarily for the people who live along it, and for anyone who wants to leave the foothills without being seen. A Ring camera on this road captured a vehicle at approximately 2:36 a.m., 8 minutes after Nancy's pacemaker lost its connection. The drive from Nancy's home to that camera location, following the route that locals identify as the way to avoid main roads, takes approximately 8 minutes. This is not by itself proof of anything. A vehicle on a road at 2:36 in the morning could belong to anyone. A shift worker, an insomniac, someone returning from a late night. The footage quality has not allowed for definitive identification of make or model. And coincidence in criminal investigation is not evidence. But the timeline asks a question that demands an answer. If the pacemaker severed at 2:28 because Nancy was removed from her home, and if the vehicle at 2:36 was traveling the exact route someone would take to leave that neighborhood undetected, then those 8 minutes contain the entire architecture of a crime. The surveillance footage was not discovered by law enforcement. It was found by a journalist weeks into the investigation. A detail that raises its own set of uncomfortable questions about how thoroughly the surrounding area was canvassed in the critical early days. Within the first days of the investigation, the crime scene at Nancy's home was released, earlier than standard protocol would typically allow for a case involving a missing person, blood evidence, and suspected foul play. What followed was a contamination cascade. In the days and weeks after the scene was released, media and community members documented items scattered through the surrounding desert. Latex gloves, more than a dozen of them, discarded in washes and along paths within a 2-mile radius of the home. These were not evidence of the crime. They were evidence of the response, left behind by law enforcement personnel, search teams, and forensic technicians who had worked the area and apparently departed without collecting their own materials. Every one of those gloves represents a failure of basic scene discipline. Every one is a piece of time that investigators later had to spend collecting, cataloging, and ruling out something that should never have been left behind. In a case where physical evidence is already scarce, the contamination of the surrounding environment is not a minor procedural footnote. It is a wound in the integrity of the investigation that cannot be undone. The desert around Nancy Guthrie's home holds more than discarded gloves. It holds a behavioral truth about how crimes like this unfold, and why the people responsible may have had far fewer options than anyone first assumed. In the weeks following Nancy's disappearance, 2 primary frameworks emerged for understanding what happened, and they lead to very different conclusions. The first is abduction for ransom. Under this framework, Nancy was specifically targeted, taken alive, and the ransom demands that followed are genuine, the actual motive driving the crime. Her value to the perpetrators is Nancy herself, held as leverage for payment. The second is a burglary that went catastrophically wrong. Under this framework, Nancy's home was targeted for property, not for Nancy. The perpetrators expected to enter, take what they came for, and leave undetected. Something disrupted that plan. A confrontation occurred. And the ransom demands that followed are either a deliberate diversion, designed to send investigators chasing a kidnapping scenario while the real crime recedes into the desert, or they are entirely disconnected from the crime itself, the work of a digital opportunist exploiting a high-profile disappearance for profit. The ransom communications themselves offer a critical clue. No verified proof of life was ever provided. No functional payment mechanism was established. The digital sophistication required to create untraceable ransom emails routed through anonymizing infrastructure and linked to a cryptocurrency wallet that has resisted federal-level forensic analysis. That sophistication is extraordinary. Now compare it to the figure at the front door. The person caught on surveillance, clumsily holding desert shrubbery in front of a Ring camera in what appears to be an improvised attempt to avoid detection. The gap between these two profiles is a canyon. Zero. The digital ghost who crafted untraceable ransom demands and the fumbling figure at Nancy's door do not appear to be the same person. And if they are not, then the ransom may be the single largest distraction in this investigation, a decoy that consumed weeks of federal resources while the actual perpetrators benefited from every hour of misdirection. If the second framework is correct, if this was a burglary interrupted by the presence of a homeowner who was supposed to be asleep or who was known to be there but expected to comply, then what happened next follows a behavioral logic chain that has been documented in criminal case studies for decades. Step 1. Entry. The layout of Nancy's property makes undetected approach entirely feasible. The south side of the property backs into unfenced desert parcels that flow into one another. A vehicle does not need to park in the driveway. A person can be dropped off on a road to the south and walk through open desert, crossing property boundaries that exist only on surveys to reach the home from behind. In the darkness of the foothills, without a full moon, this approach is essentially invisible. Step 2. The confrontation variable. Whether the perpetrator entered expecting an empty home and encountered Nancy, or entered knowing she was there and expecting compliance. The trajectory of the crime depends entirely on one factor: whether Nancy detected the intruder. A hand reaching for a phone, a voice calling out, the sound of 911 being dialed. Any of these responses transforms the situation from a property crime into something the perpetrator didn't plan for and cannot control. Step 3. The decision tree collapses. A burglar detected inside an occupied home at night in the foothills, miles from a main road with no vehicle parked outside, faces a binary choice. Option 1. Flee. Run out of the home, into the desert, through terrain studded with cholla and prickly pear, across neighboring properties where motion sensors will activate and dogs will bark, with no vehicle immediately available for extraction. While behind them, a 911 call is already in progress. Option 2 is the one that no one wants to contemplate. But the criminal calculus is brutally simple. If fleeing means almost certain capture, and if the person inside the home has already seen the intruder's face, heard their voice, or made physical contact that transfers DNA, then leaving that witness behind, alive, is leaving behind the evidence that guarantees prosecution. This is the terrible arithmetic that governs crimes like these. Not malice planned in advance, but panic calculated in seconds. Nancy's blood on the front patio tells us that something physical happened at or near the threshold of the home. If a struggle occurred, and the blood evidence suggests one did, then the transfer of physical evidence is not speculative. It is biological certainty. Scratches leave DNA under fingernails. Blood transfers to clothing, to hands, to any surface it contacts. Touch DNA deposits on skin with even brief physical contact. Hair follicles dislodge. Fibers transfer. In a struggle between two people, the volume of forensic evidence generated in even a few seconds is enormous. And this is where the logic turns toward its darkest conclusion. If Nancy sustained an injury and made contact with her attacker, then Nancy herself, her body, her clothing, the biological material under her nails, becomes the single most dangerous piece of evidence connecting the perpetrator to the crime. Leaving her behind, whether alive or dead, means leaving the evidence behind. This is the reason Nancy is not in her home. Not because she was the target, but because she became the evidence. A crime of this nature, entry into an occupied home, confrontation with the homeowner, removal of a person from the property, and departure through desert terrain to a vehicle staged elsewhere, is functionally impossible as a solo operation. Criminological literature on residential burglary teams is extensive. The roles are well defined. One person enters the home and manages the interior. One person serves as lookout and manages communication. One person stages and operates the vehicle. A minimum of 2 is required. 3 is common. The coordination between them, communication during the entry, signaling when something goes wrong, adapting the extraction plan in real time, requires a level of operational partnership that extends beyond the night of the crime itself. This team structure also explains one of the most confounding aspects of the case: the silence. $1 million reward has been on the table since early in the investigation. In the world of property crime, $1 million is a sum that breaks every alliance. Informants have sold out partners for a fraction of that amount. The criminal underworld operates on a principle of self-preservation, and self-preservation, when $1 million is involved, almost always means talking. So why has no one talked? The answer may lie in a legal concept called the felony murder rule. Under this statute, which applies in Arizona, every participant in a felony during which a death occurs can be charged with murder, regardless of who specifically caused the death: the lookout who never entered the home, the driver who stayed in the vehicle, the person who planned the burglary but never touched the victim. All of them, under felony murder, face the same charge as the person who committed the act itself. $1 million is a powerful incentive to talk, but the prospect of a murder charge is a more powerful incentive to stay silent, especially when talking implicates not just a partner, but yourself. The Sonoran Desert is not a passive backdrop to this story. It is an active participant. The terrain surrounding the Tucson foothills is vast, vegetated, and punishing to traverse, but it is also remarkably effective at concealing what is left within it. The washes that cut through the desert floor flood during monsoon season, redistributing everything within them. The density of vegetation, creosote, palo verde, cholla, prickly pear, limits ground-level visibility to feet rather than yards. The remoteness of the terrain makes systematic searching an enormous commitment of time, personnel, and coordination. Organized search methodology exists for this environment. Segmented grid searching with critical spacing between searchers ensures that nothing between them is missed. Aerial coverage by helicopter or fixed-wing aircraft can identify disturbances not visible from the ground. Cadaver-trained K9 units can detect biological material that human searchers cannot. But all of these methods require a defined search area. They require knowing which direction to look. And in the Nancy Guthrie case, the direction of departure was never confirmed. The vehicle at 2:36 a.m. offers a bearing, but only if the vehicle is connected to the crime. And without a make, a model, or a plate number, that connection remains unproven. The desert does not volunteer what it holds. It does not judge what crosses through it. It simply absorbs and waits. Pima County is not Los Angeles. It is not New York. The Sheriff's Department serves a vast geographic area with the resources of a mid-sized county agency. And when a case of this magnitude arrives, it does not have the luxury of dedicating an entire division, while the rest of the department continues business as usual. A case like Nancy Guthrie's consumes everything. Every detective, every K9 unit, every interagency relationship, all funneled into a single investigation. And there are other victims, other open cases, other families waiting for answers while the department's full attention is directed at the Foothills. The FBI deployed significant resources from their Phoenix field office, roughly 2 hours away by car. Their presence brought federal technology, federal databases, and federal authority. But it also brought the friction that accompanies any multi-agency operation. Jurisdictional questions, competing communication chains, different operational cultures colliding in the field. The question of who leads, the local agency with institutional knowledge of the community, or the federal agency with resources that dwarf the county budget, is never purely tactical. It is political, it is psychological, and it is personal, because every deputy and every agent on the ground entered law enforcement to solve exactly this kind of case. By the end of the first month, the scaling back had begun. The FBI pulled most of its resources back to Phoenix. The Pima County Sheriff's Department announced it was refocusing resources to detectives specifically assigned to this case. Language that means the all-hands surge was over, and the investigation was transitioning from active emergency response to sustained long-term casework. 0. This is not abandonment. Every major investigation follows this arc. The initial surge of resources gives way to a smaller, dedicated team that works the case for months, sometimes years. The FBI maintains agents in Tucson. Leads continue to be pursued. But the publicly visible intensity of the response has diminished. And for a community that has watched the investigation from day one, that diminishment feels like something closer to defeat. The technological resources deployed on this case have been extraordinary and, to date, publicly inconclusive. Geofencing warrants were served to identify devices present near Nancy's home on the night of the disappearance. Cell tower data was analyzed to map the movement of phones in the surrounding area. Reports emerged of an unprecedented technique: the use of Google account data to identify specific devices within a defined geographic zone. A method with very few known precedents in American criminal investigation. And yet, no digital trail has publicly led to an identification. What does this absence mean? Several possibilities, none of them comforting. The perpetrators may have left their personal phones behind before approaching the home. A basic but effective countermeasure. They may have used burner phones activated briefly and discarded. Or they may have relied on a communication method that is both older and more primitive than cellular technology. Handheld radios. Commercially available, essentially untraceable, effective over distances of a mile or more. A person parked on a back road could coordinate with a person inside a home using nothing more than a walkie-talkie purchased at a retail store. The cryptocurrency wallet associated with the ransom demands has proven equally resistant to forensic analysis. Federal agencies with access to blockchain tracing tools that can follow Bitcoin through layers of anonymization have, to public knowledge, been unable to identify the wallet's owner. This, again, requires a level of technical sophistication that seems inconsistent with the physical execution of the crime at Nancy's door. The case presents two distinct signatures, one digital, one physical. The digital signature is sophisticated, disciplined, and invisible. The physical signature is clumsy, improvised, and caught on camera. The distance between these two profiles may be the most important clue in the entire investigation. After weeks of searching, thousands of law enforcement hours, federal technology, $1 million reward, and national media attention, it is worth taking an unflinching inventory of what is actually known. Nancy Guthrie's blood was found on the front patio of her home. Her pacemaker lost its connection to her phone at 2:28 a.m. Surveillance footage shows the property was visited by a figure, possibly armed, at least once before the night of the disappearance. A vehicle was captured on a back road 2.5 miles away at 2:36 a.m. Ransom demands were received with no proof of life and no functional payment mechanism. $1 million reward has produced no informant. No arrest has been made. Nancy has not been seen or heard from since. What the evidence strongly indicates, but is not confirmed, multiple perpetrators operating as a coordinated team, pre-planned entry with prior surveillance, departure via back roads avoiding main arteries, a fundamental disconnection between the person who sent the ransom demands and the person who stood at Nancy's front door. What remains entirely unknown: Nancy's current location, the identity of any perpetrator, the make or model of the vehicle on the surveillance footage, whether the ransom demands have any connection whatsoever to the crime. The evidence does not whisper. It speaks clearly. But what it says is something no one wants to hear. The Guthrie family has done something that requires a kind of courage most people will never be asked to summon. They have publicly acknowledged what the evidence strongly suggests: that Nancy may not be coming home alive. This is not surrender. It is the opposite. It is the refusal to allow false hope to paralyze the search for accountability. It is the decision to confront the most painful possibility head-on so that the investigation can move forward without the weight of an illusion that serves no one, least of all Nancy. $1 million reward remains active. The FBI maintains a presence in Tucson. Tips continue to be received and investigated. But for the people who love Nancy Guthrie, every day since January has been lived in the specific and relentless hell of ambiguity, where grief cannot fully begin because certainty has not arrived, and where hope cannot fully sustain because the evidence will not allow it. The Sonoran Desert has witnessed human passage for thousands of years. The Hohokam people built irrigation canals through this valley before European contact. Spanish missionaries crossed this terrain in the 16th century. Miners, ranchers, migrants, and fugitives have all moved through this landscape, leaving traces that the desert preserved or erased, according to its own indifferent logic. Somewhere in the geography surrounding Nancy Guthrie's home, within the washes, beneath the cholla, along the back roads that wind away from the foothills into the broader desert basin, the evidence of what happened on the night of January 17th exists. Physical evidence degrades, but it does not vanish entirely. Vehicles leave trace evidence on unpaved roads. Biological material persists in desert soil far longer than most people assume. And the people who know what happened in the 2 or 3 or however many were involved carry that knowledge as a weight that compounds with every passing day. Secrets shared among criminals are not stable compounds. They are volatile. They corrode trust. They surface in arguments, in moments of intoxication, in the desperate arithmetic of plea negotiations on unrelated charges. The felony murder rule keeps mouths shut, but it does not erase memory. And memory under pressure has a way of finding its way to the surface. The desert is patient, but the truth is not a secret that improves with keeping. Nancy Guthrie was not a pacemaker timestamp. She was not a blood droplet on a patio. She was not a line item in a case file or a number on a reward poster. She was a woman who lived in a home she chose, in a landscape she loved. At the edge of a desert she had watched change with the seasons for years. She had a family who expected her to be there in the morning. She had a pacemaker that monitored her heart with the devotion of a machine that does not know how to stop caring. And she had a right, the most basic, fundamental right, to be safe in her own home on a night that was supposed to be ordinary. That right was taken from her. And whoever took it, whoever stood at that door, whoever waited in the desert, whoever drove that back road at 2:36 in the morning, carries the weight of that theft with them, not as a memory that fades, but as a fact that compounds. Every day, every night, every time the desert wind moves through the foothills and reminds them of what they left behind. If you have any information about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the FBI tip line number is displayed on screen. The Guthrie family has offered a $1 million reward for information leading to Nancy's safe return or the arrest and conviction of those responsible. Subscribe to True Crime, Buff HQ, Honor Victims, Expose Evil. The next video, linked on screen, examines another case where forensic evidence buried by time was ultimately recovered and led to justice decades later.